Recording in progress. Okay, so we are now officially being recorded. And I also wanted to, for those of you who may not have seen the email that I sent out, wanted to let you know that Jim Gagney, has had leukemia for the last year, and the treatments that he's undergoing have not worked, and so he's in his very, very last days. And so that's that. I mean, he sent a note to me about that I sent to you all, that I thought was some of the most well thought out, down to earth kinds of thoughts to share for a person who knows his end is very, very, very near. And when I asked him whether he wanted me to share his email address, his response to me was, "I don't think I have time for any more emails."
Oh, wow.
But I have tremendous respect for him as a human being, and how he has he's been dealing with this. I kind of wished I'd have known sooner. I would have made an effort to reach out and visit him and all. So anyway, that's what's going on for one of our members, and I thought that that you should know. And let's see, what else? Actually, it's kind of hard for me to think about what else, because that's such a heavy subject. Let's move on then to our meeting proper. I am going to turn the meeting over to Hutch. I'm going to ask that you all turn off your mics. I guess I have a way to turn off all the mics as well. But let's see, select a microphone, select a speaker. I'm not as good at this as our usual Dan. So I am going to look for a little spot to see if there's anything that says that. Otherwise, during the time that Hutch is reviewing our images, what I'd like you to do is to be silent and to not chat, and to focus your attention on what it is that he has to share with us. So without further ado, I'll turn it over to Hutch.
Okay. I think you're going to need to.
I need to allow you to share the screen.
Share,
right?
Yeah.
Yep, there you go.
Just as really to begin, I'd like to just thank you all for inviting me to be once again part of fStop. Actually, Lloyd, I think maybe I've got friends here that see the images I post. I can't recall ever actually posting an image on fStop.
Oh,
but I do frequently watch you guys. I'm a friend of the fStop page, and you'll find me quite often giving a thumbs up or a wow or whatever when I particularly enjoy one of your images. So yeah, I'm looking at you all the time, and those of you that are friends of mine are probably seeing my images pop up here and there. So a little background for those of you that may not know me. I've been basically a photographer just about all my life, I guess close to 70 years now. I grew up in my dad's darkroom and spent a lot of years shooting film, and got the digital bug very, very early on. I'm now a member of the Thousand Oaks Photo Group. I'm a member of the Channel Islands Professional Photographers, and I'm a member of the Professional Photographers of California. I'm a director for the Southern California Council of Camera Clubs, and I'm a Professional Photographers of California credentialed judge. Over the year, I'll probably judge, I would guess, well, I'm cutting back, but typically last year I judged probably 15 or 20 times for 8 or 9 different groups. And so I'm practiced at it, and I'm used to dodging tomatoes. So if feel free to throw a few. You know, it's we won't all agree. In fact, I enjoy watching the recordings of some of the other judges and sometimes disagree with them. But isn't that the wonderful part of having different judges, is that you're getting a different perspective and different point of view. So I fully expect that you may agree with me totally, or you may disagree with me some tonight. But that's, I think, the benefit of having images critiqued and judged. So with that, I'm going to share my screen here, where I have all of your images up in, I'm putting them up in, now let me go back to the first image. I think nope, I must have the wrong screen shared, because I can't do what I intend on doing. Let's see. Screen 2, screen 1. And I'm getting the share screen. Oh, here we go. Let me get back to the first image. I believe the first image is, I believe this is the first image. We'll rotate around, and when I get back to this one, you'll know that it was the first image I started with. First, I'd like to say congratulations to all of you, because I don't think there's a single image that didn't at least meet the assignment pretty well. The assignment was signs, and everybody had a sign here and there, and so that's, I'm going to focus more on composition and the other elements than I am on the signs themselves, because I think everybody deserves credit for having met, again, the assignment. This particular image I spent, yes.
We're not seeing the screen at this point.
You're not seeing the screen?
No, sorry.
Okay, then let me try again here.
Okay.
Are you seeing it now?
Yes.
Okay, and I'm zooming in and out, and you can see me zooming in and out.
Yes.
Okay, that's the problem before. For some reason, I got your share screen and I couldn't control it. So, okay, first image. Again, met the assignment very, very well. I thought this was an interesting image. I love the signs. It appears to me that the maker did a duotone type of effect, where the signs kind of pop up, the yellow pops up. I really enjoyed the graffiti, which tended to kind of match the signs. I'm sorry has people with kind of a sad face all the way down to I love you, where the faces tend to be more, I guess happy would be the description. The thing that kind of I question on this is what you do when you photograph somebody else's art. And this is somebody else's art. And I always say, if you're going to photograph somebody else's art, you need to make it new art. And I think this comes close with the person with the yellow jacket. But I would have really liked to have seen, and I know it's tough, maybe photographing him out have said, hey, you, or something to get the person to turn around so you could see an expression and see the face that maybe matches up with the sign in some way. But right now, I'm just getting hit so hard by the yellow coat that I'm not feeling that it ties together with the story of the original art very well. So I gave this image a 8 because I think there's a really strong attempt there, and obviously very, very strong signs. And to move to the next image, this is what happened to me last time, is I got stuck. Come on. I can do everything but move to the next image, and I can do everything but. You know, I'm going to go back out again. Oops, cancel. I'm going to unshare. Can you see, am I sharing my screen now?
Yes,
So you can't see me moving in and out.
I could see you moving in and out.
There we go.
Right.
Can you see the next image now?
No, right now it's stuck on, I'm sorry, please forgive me.
Okay, something's going on here where I'm going to stop sharing and I'm going to try to get back to the one that will allow me to do. I think. There we go.
Okay,
That works, right?
right.
Yeah. Okay. Again, great use of the sign. I kind of looked at this for a long time, trying to figure out kind of what's going on, and I could be very wrong, but I'm kind of suspecting that the blur on the sign maybe was done in post, and I find it kind of confusing because if there was a slow shutter used to blur the sign to that limited amount, I would have thought that you would have seen some blurred motion in the arm of the person or in the cars or in the other things that are moving in the image. So it really became kind of confusing to my eye. It's almost more like the sign's out of focus than motion blurred, which I think was the intent of the maker. So I enjoy the concept, and I think the composition is really good. I think that I might have enjoyed it even more if the sign wasn't blurred, or if there was more motion showing throughout the image. So I gave this a 7. This I just enjoyed from the standpoint of impact, which in the professional photographers of California world is the #1 criteria that you judge on. And when this came up, it just kind of really hit me between the eyes with impact. It's colorful, it's graphic. There's so much interest in it, with some of the neon missing, some of it there, some of the paint missing, some of it there. I just kind of have a personal preference to rusty, crusty things. So I'm maybe a little more influenced than I might be on other images, just because it's something I enjoy. There is a wonderful symmetry in this image. Oftentimes you say don't dead center something, but something like this really works best. Fully symmetrical, and so I really enjoyed this image. I gave it a 9. This image, I really enjoyed the story. Obviously fits the assignment really well in terms of the signs in the back. The only thing that I looked at on this that kind of kept me from giving it a better score was this head down here in the bottom. And this is so prominent that my eye tended to go up here. And I think where you really want it, your eye is right in here where the action is. So I just played a little bit with a crop and went in a little bit tighter. I didn't want to take out the speaker here because I think it ties to him having the microphone in his hand. And at least for me, that became a better image. I'm really focused on the sign. I'm focused on the action. I think the other possible way of dealing with this might have been, one second. If you have another image, or if you have more space in this image, if this has already been cropped down, the other thing I might have liked seeing was all the crowd and how this related to all the people that were there. But as it is, and with this particular crop, again, I kind of like coming in close up. So I gave this an 8 because I think it's a good story and overall pretty good image with just that one area that I thought needed fixing or some work. Another image, you guys really had me pondering these. I've looked at some of these images for a long time, and this was one of them. Certainly meets the assignment well with the do not enter sign. That being said, I think what really kept me kind of puzzled and held back was this railing, or maybe it's a footstep, I'm not sure, is considerably brighter than the sign. So in theory, the brightest part of an image will generally attract your eye, and words and letters will generally first attract your eye. In this case, and windows will, by windows, I mean framing like this, will often draw you. So when I first looked at this image, the first thing I really looked at was this. And I kind of stopped there because I really wasn't sure what the background was. Since it's such a low-key, high contrast image, I'm really confused about the background. Then I kind of came up here, and I know in the back of my mind that the sign was there, but my focus was down here. So I would have really preferred, and in fact, I played with it doing exactly this. I don't want to spend as much time, but I would have liked to have seen the sign brighter and the rail a little bit toned down, and seen some of the background so I could kind of understand what was going on there. I know why the maker probably didn't want this showing through, but I was kind of confused about what I couldn't enter looking at it as it is shot. I kind of thought, after I discovered what it is, it's coupling between two cars, and probably shot at the place there in the valley with all the trains. I thought, well, maybe it should have been more an image that was higher, that kind of showed the area between the trains. I don't know. But as it stands, again, I would have liked to have seen this toned down, this a little brighter, and a little bit more detail in the shadows. So I gave it a 7. Really fun image. And I had a good time going around reading each of the individual signs. It's a statement kind of an image, maybe a little bit political, or maybe a statement on the state of homelessness. But it's interesting, and there's kind of some fun signs there. Movie producer needs 10 million plus a pretty woman that will do anything to be a star. There's some fun ones there that are commentaries on what is really a pretty sad state. I cut a little bit into whether or not this is kind of photographing somebody else's art. Somebody compiled this and put it up there. And if the maker of the image collected the signs and put them up there, my apologies. But in a sense, it's a good documentary image of signs. Nothing particularly wrong with that, especially in this competition. But it would have been taking it to a different level, perhaps, if there'd been a homeless person incorporated into it, or something else besides just documenting it. But nonetheless, I think it's well done. It certainly tells a story, and so I gave it an 8. This one I kind of had fun with because I've actually shot this sign myself several times and never quite figured out how to do it justice. The 395 highway is, depending on which direction you're looking at it, is in the background, and oftentimes there's trucks and other stuff, and I've tried to kind of incorporate them into the image. It's a fun sign. Again, I love rusty, crusty stuff, So this tends to have more impact on me than maybe some others do. I think there's what I struggle with on this that I think could have been better is that there's a painterly effect that's been applied to it, and I kind of understand trying to do that, but I'm not so sure that it's done particularly. I hate to use the word particularly not well, but I think it could be better and more effective. You can see kind of an edge here of a vignette around the smeared painterly kind of effects here. It's a watercolor effect here, which is okay. But if you're going to have a watercolor effect here, then I would like to see a watercolor effect appear on the sign and the rest of the image. To do part of it as a watercolor effect and part of it just as kind of straight photography or with a different effect, I think is confusing and doesn't particularly work well. So I've given this a 6. Interesting image. I mentioned on the other one, seeing more people and what's going on. And so here's more people. And I appreciate seeing the crowd and what's going on, the protest. And of course, there are the signs within it, but I'm not so sure that the signs are the prominent part of the story here. I would have liked to have seen maybe a little tighter focus on the signs than on the crowd. I've got one backwards here that I really can't see what it says, and I'm kind of left to these up here. These signs don't really work for me. The other part of this image that kind of bothered me is I look at it, it really is breaking up. Possibly artifacting on because it was overcropped, or I'm not sure, but it's not a sharp image. So there's just kind of that technical flaw. The other thing that caught me, and it's really a nitpick, and there's quite a few images, and I don't want to nitpick them all, but when I look at the geometry of quite a few of the images here, there's some keystoning or images that are not quite level with the horizon. So I just go down to geometry and I clicked automatic, and all of a sudden I think that come on.
That looks like that thing we did.
Do your thing. It's stuck. Oh, shoot. There we go. Bingo. Just look at that versus that. It's a very small thing, but the world is kind of out of kilter here. And the world is back in kilter there. But main thing really is I would have liked to see a little more focus on the signs and a little bit more technical detail, sharp detail in the image. So I gave this a 6. Really interesting image. Overall, I really enjoy the image, and I think it really met the assignment super well. It's an example of an image that can be so difficult because you're using, or there are within the image, several different light sources with several different color temperatures. So what you end up with is probably incandescent up here in the main part of the image, which is really almost unnaturally warm or orange. And then you end up with a lot of fluorescent here, which of course is a very cool color temperature. And so you end up with very cool colors here and a super contrast between the two. There's it's not going to be perfect, but there's a way of dealing with this that I use, and that is to use the color mixer, the hue, saturation, and luminance channels. And I can just take that warm yellow and bring it down, maybe a little bit of the oranges down. And now all of a sudden, and I would play with it a lot more than this, but now all of a sudden you can see that the color is much better balanced. It's much better balanced than what it originally did. And of course I could warm the greens and the fluorescent colors just by playing with the green saturation there. So, you know, and over in the luminance, you could be playing with the brightness of the yellows and what have you. I use the HSL sliders a lot. I shot at the Mullen Museum up in Oxnard for the museum not too long ago, and it's all Bugattis, old, beautiful, beautiful cars, but very, very hard shooting in that type of light situation, number one, and hard because I have a silver car that I'm shooting with a red car in the background and a blue car, very, very red, very, very
You're
blue.
not working, that's loud.
Excuse me, and very, very distracting to my main subject. So basically, I went to my HSL sliders and I pulled down the reds and I pulled down the blues so that they were not as prominent in the image, and brought back more focus on the subject itself. The other thing I suggest to people is to always go around the edge of your image. It's something in the PPC world that they really hammer you on. And you've got this very bright light on the side, kind of a nitpick, but nonetheless, that bright light will pull your eye off. And I complain about PPC judges that nitpick things like this, but you know, just pulling that over a little bit, not so sure you need so much there, and suddenly that goes away. And I think you get, you know, you're not getting your eye pulled over there by accident. I think it's well seen. I think technically it could have been done a little bit better, so I gave it an 8. Another fascinating, and I want to make sure I'm reset on this. Probably, there we go. Yeah, I found this a little bit confusing. It's kind of a pretty image. I mean, I hold my hand over the road sign ends, and I've really got a beautiful road leading to the mountains up there. I'm not quite sure what this is. I presume that it was done in post, and I presume that it is supposed to be the light source that is lighting the road and the sign. The problem I have with that is, and now that we're doing more dropping in skies and dropping in things and compositing, it's something you really have to be conscious of, or you confuse the viewers. You've got the light coming from this direction, but you've got the road sign getting light coming from. Huh? You got the light source coming on the sign from the absolute opposite direction. So it even if you don't recognize it, it tends to confuse the brain, because that's just not the way the real world works. Unless you had a very strong sun going down or rising the other way, lighting up the sign, and this bright light coming the other way, lighting up the road, but it nonetheless is confusing. I guess the lines here are meant more as a kind of an artistic flair on this light coming out of the mountain. So overall, I think it was creative, but I think it's confusing. So, and I understand why the sign was made so prominent. Again, maybe if the sign wasn't quite as bright, I don't know, play with it coming down a little bit, but I'd have to play with it a little bit more. But for that reason, for that direction of light being as confusing as it is, I gave it an 8. I congratulate the maker for taking this and giving it a different point of view. I really enjoyed this image. I really enjoyed the signs. You've got really nice, strong leading lines. that lead you up there. It is really nicely framed in a window around the clouds. So you've got this cloud filling the negative space up here. You got these clouds down here framing these signs there. Really nitpick to me is the bush here. So I just kind of played with it, and I just took a crop and made it a square image. And I'll let you guys judge which you like better. But I thought this improved the image just from a standpoint of kind of taking away that distraction. I think it's a illustration of how you don't need to crop to traditional aspect ratios. We now, in competitions like this, have the freedom to crop any which way we want and eliminate distractions and other things to make the images better. So, and we all, I hope you guys will get back to doing prints. There's, you're one of the last clubs doing prints, and I love clubs that do prints, and I love printing. It's really an art that I think belongs in photography. And, we get so used to printing to the aspect ratio or cropping to the aspect ratio of prints or a frame that we forget that we have this liberty to just crop away. So I'll let you be the judge on this one. I kind of like my crop, but I can see where other people maybe like the longer leading lines that go up. The vertical lines and horizontal lines are very powerful. And verticals oftentimes have been associated with rising up to God and religion, but these do a great job. And the different names of the signs, of course, are fun. So I gave this a 9. I love the story in this. I just absolutely love it. You look at that guy kind of nonchalantly saying, not me. I'm not interested in what's behind me. So I got kind of a kick out of it. There's just a lot of good things going on with this. The signs are fun and they're wonderful. And the guy, again, is so nonchalant about it, as if, not me, I'm not going there. But who knows? Maybe he is. I really like the fact that the photographer managed to place this bicycle within this little window, so you didn't have an overlap between these verticals here. I really like this lamppost that kind of is dividing the image between the guy and the subject matter here, still leaving all the subject matter clearly framed in there. So you got really 2 frames working for you. You got the frame that has the gentleman in it, the frame that has the shop in it, and frame that has the bicycle in it. You just got everything framed perfectly. I think it's just it's a nice crop. I don't know if it was my image, I probably would have done something to take out this little edge of bicycle here. I wouldn't want to crop it out because I think you need this space here. So that's an ultra nitpick. I think the other perhaps ultra nitpick, I kind of looked at the tonality I really like, but I think that it might have been pushing the tone mapping a little bit, creating a little bit of a artifacting in the lettering and what have you, but that could just be the way it is in the window. Nice light. So I gave this a 9. Really got a kick out of this. This one actually had me going and to Google images and looking to see if there was some other second Santa Monica sport fishing sign someplace that was actually really in the water, because I think the maker did such a great job of compositing this. I mean, I'm certain it's a composite. I know the sign so well, and I'm 99.5% certain that so far global warming has not risen to cover the Santa Monica Pier to this point yet. But when I thought about that gosh, global warming hasn't gotten to that point, then I started looking at this image and I looked at the oil tanker out there, and maybe it was the intent of the maker and maybe it wasn't. But there really is kind of a statement, regardless of your political viewpoint or what have you, there really is kind of a statement here in terms of global warming and theoretically the Santa Monica Pier being underwater and an oil tanker within this framing and window that really is so well positioned. Not centered, just off to the side, really nice. The beautiful tonality in this, that soft tone I just find really, really pretty. So I gave this image a 10. This one, it is, I think, exceptional in terms of meeting the assignment, really exceptional in terms of meeting the assignment, because in a sense, if this is what I talk about, capturing somebody else's art and making new art out of it. This sign technically is art. And you could have just captured the sign and met the assignment, right? You would have gotten a 10 for the assignment, meeting the assignment. Maybe not so much just because you're copying somebody else's art. In this case, though, this maker has done exactly what I was suggesting in one of the previous images, where you've told a complete story. Rest your feet, and you got this guy resting his feet. And you got this little shoe down here, which I think is really cool. And you got the texture and roughness of the pavement. You've got such a super composition with the flags kind of framing the top of the image. Just everything in this image is kind of going for it. I would have, I don't know, I in the back of my brain, I says, Hutch, you're just nitpicking it to death. This little, here, I say, watch your edges. Gee, I wish the shoe was a little bit in, but I kind of second looked at it and I thought, no, it's kind of in the right spot there. It just works. So great story. Really, really well done in terms of meeting the assignment. I wish there was a little, just a hair more, perhaps contrast, a little bit more bright in the brights. And I don't think you can do much more with the shadows, but that again is a super nitpick. So I gave this a 10. I kind of struggled with what to do with this. It really strongly meets the assignment. It really has, I think, a very strong story politically. Even the people in the background kind of fit into the whole, on the side of the wall, fit into the whole thing. Where I kind of struggled with myself on this is lettering and things that are in black and white really are such a powerful draw to the eye. So the first place my eye goes to is this sign or the side of the building that's got the lettering on it. And maybe that's what the maker intended. But if that's the case, then this sign should have been sharp. It's not, it's out of focus. So what I've got is I've got the most powerful thing drawing my eye out of focus. And then I've got this secondary sign that really is perhaps as powerful or more powerful that I've kind of got to struggle to get over and look at because I'm so drawn to this portion of it. So I kind of played with this in terms of trying to minimize that and still couldn't come up with a very good job of dealing with it. But I think it kind of illustrates what I'm talking about when I crop to reduce the amount of this big white sign down so I can focus more on this one. And now I really, since this is dead sharp, it's absolutely in focus. I find that this works a little bit better. And then of course I can still tone down the whites perhaps over there a little bit more, which bring up my shadows a little bit. This sign is popping out at me, and my eye is much more comfortable looking at it. So it's, I guess, what you'd call a compositionally, technically not there. And I'm not so sure that I fixed it, and I'm not sure how it could be fixed. I think that if the person had the opportunity to go back, maybe shooting from a different point of view so that you can capture this in focus without this, and so you just got this building and maybe this building, what have you. Now you got something, but again, sharp in focus. Or maybe you move over to the left and shoot towards this sign. So again, you don't have so much of that. I'm just not sure without being there, but in the meantime, met the assignment well. I'm going to give it a 7. Love this image. I felt like I was at the fair. When you're in the crowds and everybody's moving around you, I just feel that movement, and it's just a great storytelling, great impact image in my mind. If everything was sharp in this image, if all the people were sharp, I don't think that the story would be nearly as good. You're in the evening and there's all this motion and everything. And then I think the real kicker is how nicely, look at the triangle that is framing the sign. So you kind of know where the maker wants you to go right there. I think the only thing that held me back from giving this an even higher score is that I would have liked to have seen maybe this area up here toned down a little bit, or given a vignette of some kind, so that the eye really even more strongly goes to this this area here. This area is so large and so bright that it kind of takes away from that the sign. So you can see what I mean there. Once I turn that off, bam, your eye tends to go up there. So I love the image. I really wish I could give it a 10, but I'm going to give it a 9, just because I think this area up here should have been toned down one way or the other. A lot of fun on this. It's really kind of a very interesting graphic. And what I tended to do on this and I look at with a lot of graphics, a couple things going on with this. It's just really powerful in terms of the texture, and the contrast in this is super powerful. That being said, you've got a figure to ground situation here where this white border really tends to pull my eye out of the image rather than into it. It's competing with this, which is so strong. This arrow is pulling me in, and this space out here is pulling me out. So basically what I did is I took it and I basically, it's also leaning a little bit. So what I really did was I took the geometry and I kind of took it vertically and pulled it up straighter. And then I went and I said, okay, I don't need all that white border there. I just need this. And some of you may agree with me and some of you may not. But to me, that's just a stronger graphic. You don't have that competing white border there. You got some really neat, strong diagonals here. You got the lettering and the arrow that pointing down. I fought a little bit with the tip of this arrow tangent with the edge of the image. But then I thought, ground, that's the ground in theory. I'm not so sure it is because I see little things there. But, it fits with the story. So I thought that really, really worked well. And I'll let you look at the original and see what you think. But that's what I would have done. And but I think overall, really well seen and really good job of meeting the assignment. So I gave it an 8. I just tried to find desperately something to make this image better. And I can't do it. I just think it's fabulous. There's so many good things about this image. The tonality, I tend to like saturated, lots of saturation, heavy saturation in landscapes. Everything I do tends to be saturated. And when I see somebody take the tonality down the way this maker did and make it work so well, I'm envious because I can't do it. It's just not in my brain to do it. But I love it when I see somebody do it well. So I love the color harmony, the softness of it. And part of what that's doing and contributing to is it's helping this sign just pop. You really powerful black and white there, really powerful lettering. All the things I've talked about are in this sign. And if everything else was saturated more, the image was more powerful someplace, this would be diminished. As it is, it just absolutely pops. And you've got compositional elements that are really great. Look at the vertical, 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 all very, very strong. Look at the leading line going into the path and look at what it lands on. And you got these little birds in the sky up here. I mean, you got a story at the end of the leading lines. The perspective is just absolutely out of this world. You've got the diagonal perspective going down here. You got the diagonal perspective going down here, diagonal here. I do it. Maybe some of you have sat through it. I do a workshop on the principles and elements of art and design, and I'd love to use this picture in that presentation because it so well incorporates all of the elements of art into what become principles. Elements are the ingredients in a cake, and the principles are the end result of the cake. And this one's got all the elements that makes this absolutely a 10 plus in my mind. Great job. Congratulations to the maker. This struck me, it's got a ton of impact because of the color, the design, the letters, all kind of hit you right in the face. So congratulations from that standpoint. This is that famous sign Boneyard, I think, out in Las Vegas. And one of the things I always find most photographers have trouble doing is creating separation between the signs because they're all kind of jumbled in there on top of each other. There's a couple things going on though that held me back in this image from maybe scoring it higher. Color is great, has a lot of impact, but I think that there's been some tone mapping or HDR applied to it, and there's just a lot of haloing going on. You can see the haloing there. You can see a lot of haloing up here, up in this area, up here, and then there's a dust spot or something up here, or maybe that was the sun that was the maker tried to blot out. I don't know. Whatever it is, it's kind of a distraction there. So it just kind of overdone. And I think there's other ways of making that color pop than using the tone mapping software, what have you. And then you kind of had these shadows down here, which are really a nitpick, but kind of a distraction down there. I don't know what you do with them. One of the questions I always have when I see something like that is you got a lot of negative space. You need something in there to kind of keep it going. But I'm not so sure that's would have been what I would have picked. I probably would have gone around to a little different perspective. The other thing to think about when you've got a row of words like this is this becomes a leading line. And it really has movement and motion, if you know what I mean, or if you can sense what I mean. There's a motion to it. So when you have something that has kind of a movement or motion or is taking you in a direction, typically words, the Western world, we read left to right. So I start here with a nice space here, and I go left to right, and boom, I crash into the side of the image. If I were Asian, then I would be going right to left. Whoops. I would be going right to left, and I would have this nice space for my eye to lead into. As it is, this is taking me, I would have loved to have seen a little bit more space on this end. And this is fine, but it really isn't as necessary as what the other end was. I suspect the reason for this crop is I see the edge of something here. And so the photographer may have had to have moved to a different spot or maybe couldn't and was kind of stuck with this, but I thought I'd talk a little bit about that just for, so to speak, the lesson learned. So I gave this image a 6. And there we go. I suspect this is the same maker as the earlier image at the train yard. And this time I can kind of see where I'm going and why the caution tapes are there. It makes sense to me. And I do like the contrast. It's really a kind of a, it's a low key image with very high key sign. I'm not so sure that maybe that's, and I like high contrast stuff, but I'm not so sure that maybe this isn't taking an edge more than what I personally might have preferred. But I suspect the maker would disagree with me and probably like it this way. So I wouldn't debate that. I think that's just kind of more a matter of personal preference than it is right or wrong. So I think it's well seen, and I really like the zigzags that kind of lead your eye up into the image and the story that it's telling. I see why this tape has been put up here. Obviously, this is an old train or something that probably is not safe to enter. So I think it's pretty good. I gave it an 8. Boy, I rode that 50 years ago. I rode that ferry twice a day for months, going back and forth to a part-time job I had. So I know it well. And I love the color. I love the sign. I love the memory. So I think in terms of meeting the assignment, really did a good job. The good old Orange County Register newspaper. It is, I think, meeting the assignment well. I think it's well seen as a image. I mean, you've got nice framing of the cars here. You've got nice balance with the big sign and the area in here. So compositionally, I think it's pretty good. It is, it's suffering from some of the things that you're gonna have happen to you depending on the equipment and your skill. You got a lot of noise going on. You've got some haloing here from slow shutter blur. The lettering here is obviously blurred. So while I enjoy the image a lot, for a competition such as this, it losing itself in terms of just pure technical issues. So congratulations to the maker on something pretty well seen and on an image that's fun, but I'm kind of forced to give this a, yeah, I'm gonna give it a 7. Love this image, and I really had fun with this. It, you know, the sign upstairs tells the story. It's just so many cool graphics in this image. All these horizontal lines, and then all the vertical lines, and the texture of the steps are just absolutely really cool. So I looked at it though, and I kind of said to myself, is this helping or is it drawing my eye out that direction? What's this doing for the image here? What's this doing for the image down here? Could this image have had worked better with just a little bit of easy work? And I went and I did this. It was shot at slight angle, but you want your verticals and your horizontals in an image like this to be straight. So I just corrected that, went in and did this, and I can actually do a little bit more. You guys are getting the idea anyway. You know, what I've done is I think I've taken out a lot of the distractions, and now I've got really I think a very powerful, pure graphic where where's my, there we go. Where the sign now, you really wham, go right to the sign and right up those stairs. And again, you got this, you're not distracted from this beautiful, slightly diagonal leading you right into the image. It's right about on the rule of third right there. You got a really strong diagonal here. You got all these horizontals here. You've actually, in the sense of the elements of art and design, you've almost got some competing things going on here that are opposites, but really working very well together. So horizontal lines tend to make the brain calm down. They're peaceful, they're restful. Vertical lines are dynamic and strong. Diagonals like this are even more dynamic and strong. So you kind of got this overlap of the two. And the white against the red, now you got color that comes into play also. And so this image, I think, it's another one I could almost take into my presentation and even go further with in terms of all the good things that make this image work. So again, I'll take you back to the original, and I'll let you folks decide which you like better. But I congratulate the maker because I think the person that shot this knew all of the things I just talked about. I mean, it's strong just as it is. I hope that I made it a little bit stronger, but right now, I think as it stands, it's still a great image and it tells a story. It's a sign that relates to what's going on upstairs, and the stairs are there, and the two things work together. So I gave it a 9. This I thought was the most fun image of the night. Stop penguins only beyond this point, with a penguin deciding whether or not he should go past that point. I think a really, really great relationship of the sign to the subject. Very, very powerful. Technically, I'm not particularly overwhelmed. And I'm not quite so sure what you could do about it other than, I could say, gee, go back and find a better time of day, shoot with a lens that would maybe give it a little more soft bokeh in the background. All those things are kind of tough to say to somebody when you've got a competition like this and you got such a strong story image. I really kind of struggle with this background. The only thing I could think of, perhaps, I don't know if you had the room to do it, but is to minimize the amount of that stuff going on in the background. And then there's probably ways, again, using my color mixer, where you could have brought the background down so it was maybe a little bit darker or not quite as busy. But anyway, I hate to nitpick it apart, because again, it met the assignment so well. Falls down a little bit technically, so I gave it an 8. And I enjoy this image, but of all of the images tonight, in terms of meeting the assignment, I kind of struggled a little bit with this one. I mean, technically, it's pretty well done. It's sharp, color tones are nice. The shadow area, there's detail in most of it. All kinds of things I can say are really, really good about the image. It is, from there, becomes this portion, goes back to being, I'm shooting somebody else's art. Am I making it new art? And does the sign really, really relate? I mean, I got this, I'm not even sure what that sign is. It's some, been to Europe, like, I can't even remember what that means. So I'm lost a little bit. Maybe it has a more direct meaning to the rest of the story here than what I'm aware of, but I'm left judging it based on what I know, what have you. I'm not so sure. This is really, really cool in here, but that's not really a sign. And I'm not so sure how that relates to this or this to that. You gotta really, I wish these guys weren't here, and I wish this wasn't about signs, because you've got really a great eye line, what's called an eye line, going from him to her, with this eyeball there, and that unto itself would just be really a cool story in there. There's probably several images here. I mean, you got these guys are one image, you got these people are another image, but it's not cohesive, and it's not making new art out of somebody else's art. It's just documenting them with this, the good, really probably best part of it being very secondary to the whole image. So I gave this a 6. I looked at this and I thought, I've tried to do this well quite a number of times myself at the fairs, using a slow shutter. Excuse me, I'll have a drink of water here. And very frankly, I've never found myself pulling it off very well. I get jealous when I see people that come out with something that really, really has a lot of impact. I'm not quite sure what, I mean, congratulations for seeing the sign. Congratulations for trying to use creative use of the camera. I always enjoy it when somebody does that. But somehow it's just not ringing with me. I think part of it is, I think there's Well, I'm not sure. I thought this guy's just kind of out of focus, it seems to me, and maybe it's just the streaking of the things coming past him that's doing it. So I'm having trouble putting my finger on it. I'm having trouble figuring out what could make it better. The signs are kind of fun and interesting with the letters missing. So again, I found myself, just blame me for the impact thing, but I gave this a 7 with no good suggestions on what would make it better. Enjoyed this, having spent many hours with my girlfriend as a teenager in the drive-in at Bob's. Brought back good memories, although the colors are a little different than I remember them. But the colors are really, the color harmony here is really beautiful. And the image is really sharp. You couldn't ask for a whole lot better in terms of meeting the base assignment. So I really like it from that standpoint. Keeping it from the score I would have loved to have given it, I get this feeling that the world is a little out of kilter, and come on, kind of played with the, yeah, maybe the original is better than the straightening. I don't know. That didn't do much for me. Then I looked at this, I presume it's the moon over here, which kind of is drawing me away from the main area. And I'm saying, well, does that need to be there? I'm not so sure. And the light here, this is kind of really relative to the scene. So I like this in it. Is this up here contributing, or is it drawing it away? Just so much the tree up here. So I'm looking at all this stuff and I'm thinking, I'm just so enamored with it because of the tonality and what have you. And this was about the best I thought I could do to maybe take away some of the distractions that I was kind of feeling were taking me away from what I think is really a good image. I mean, really pretty. I would have loved to have given it a little bit higher score, but again, it's this stuff on the sides that's just kind of keeping me from going there. So I'm going to give it a 9 because I just 8.5. I'm moving it up to a 9. I do like it and I do appreciate it, but nitpicks are getting to me. Great atmospherics, and I'm puzzled. I looked at this trying to figure out what the heck this thing is that is, what kind of a fog machine this is that's creating all this cool stuff out there. And I've got no idea, other than it's pretty fantastic, and really does create a really nice atmospheric condition. This is one where I could play with the transformations here to try to level this, but it shouldn't be leveled. This diagonal is really cool. You got a perspective thing going on here that really works very nicely. What I think would have made this image a little stronger for me was, the two brightest things in the both these lamps are so bright. And this little string lights up here is really cool. This little bar of light's really cool. But these two guys, and the signs are terrific. But these two guys are, because of the bright luminosity of them, they've really become your points of interest in a sense, or the place that your eye is attracted to the most strongly, and I don't think that's what you want. If at minimum, I would have done something, whether it was through cloning or whatever, to get rid of that competing light down there on the edge. Remember, go around the image and watch out for things that are occluding or tangent with the edge of the image. That, to me, just getting rid of that second light made it a heck of a lot stronger. In Photoshop, I think I could have toned this light down. It's so bright that I'm not sure how I can get it down as much as I want. I could try pulling down that doesn't work really very well. Pulling down the brightness so that, you know, I could, with more time to work on it, I think I could pull this brightness down and keep this up, or maybe even pump it up a little bit more, so that this became at least equivalent to the power of this. So compositionally, I think it's super strong from a story standpoint. It's really cool. The atmospherics are wonderful. I gave it an 8.5. I'm struggling with it. The maker can argue with me, and I won't disagree. I think this may be the same maker as one earlier, because I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, you know, there's a lot of kind of a watercolor effect going on here. The thing I struggled with on this image is, you know, the signs are absolutely meet the assignment, but the signs just are simply totally 100% different in terms of texture and focus and everything else than the rest of the image. So I got to presume kind of that they were composited in, number one, and there's nothing wrong with compositing in, but then you better make them cohesive with what the rest of the image is. So I've got these nice sharp in focus signs in the foreground here against this heavy painterly treatment in the balance of the image. And there's just a bunch of technical stuff in it. I presume that these were telephone wires up here, that the attempt was made to remove them, but it left little white stripes. And there's a way, these are really easy to take out. Let me tell you, there's a technique for doing it. If you just Google remove wires from photo, you'll find, I mean, I could take those completely out in Photoshop in less than a minute and you'd never know it. Straight lines like that across the sky are really simple to do, but you know, you got that technical flaw there. The thing that really kind of had me crying a little bit is I love the overall composition of the image. I love the subject matter, and I love the, I mean, if you take away the signs and now tone down all of the heavy painterly effect, and I love what's left. I love these, you know, horizontal, or excuse me, diagonal posts here that kind of frame the house. I'm not real fond of this bright area down here, which actually, when I first opened it up, that's kind of the first place my eye goes to, even before the signs. It's competing strongly with the signs. So you kind of, you theoretically, your eye comes into the image, and what's happening here is you tend to stop right there instead of going further into the image. So you're going to have something bright with all this leading lines and framing, have it as the landing spot, which you do there. You got a nice brighter spot right there, which if this wasn't so bright, you'd kind of be led away right to it. So it's just got a whole bunch of technical things going on. in what was probably a really nice original image. So I'm going to give it a 6. Sorry, these keep coming up. I thought long and hard about what to do with this image. It's Mentzer's used cow lot. In fact, there's so much going on in it that the first time I saw it, I just read it as being Muntzer's cow. Didn't even see the used. And I think that's just because I was kind of distracted about all the things going on in the image. Once I kind of re-looked at it and saw Mentzer's cow lot, used cow lot, I thought that's really fun. That's really interesting. And then I said, where are the used cows? It's such a powerful story and it's so much fun, but you're kind of left with where's that relationship? Where's the relationship I've talked about in the other images with the feet up on the chair against the sign? It pulls the story together. Here, I've just kind of got, I don't know, a vacant place with no cows, but a used cow lot. So I was left a little bit. I've got some, technically it's, I really like the colors and the exposure is really, really good. I got a bunch of bending going on here that something needs to be done with to straighten it out, but that's going to take more than just simply playing with the standard geometry. I could do it, but it would take a little while. One of the good things, in fact, that I just really noticed it, is how you got a frame within a frame within a frame within a frame. So you kind of travel through it. And I'm not so sure that maybe with a different prop, something might not have been able to be done with that. Just kind of doing this at the spur of the moment. Yeah, all this negative space up there you don't need. That's kind of fun. Frame, frame, frame. Much as cow lot now kind of works with the dead cow up here without all of the other extraneous distractions. So there's your point of interest. Focus in on it, narrow in on it, and I think it becomes a better image. So I gave this a 7. The previous image with the crowd, I was saying, that the crowd overwhelms it and there's just not enough sign. And I think this is a good example of where I feel like the atmosphere of what's going on. I'm a little confused by this up here, but no human is illegal. Amnesty now is there is the story there, the politics, and the people that are related to it. So you got a sign that kind of relates to all of this. I kind of got a lot of people looking in opposite directions from the sign. You might have waited for a moment to, these are what's called eye lines. They are leading lines. Where an eye is looking is a leading line. So I got a leading line looking, whoops. I got a leading line looking out here, not quite at the sign. I got a leading line looking down here at her middle. I got this leading line over here leading me this direction, and nothing that is leading me to her. So, I don't know. And then this pole that's kind of dividing the image in two. I kind of left between, I really like the crowd, but it's taking me in the wrong direction versus just focusing in on her. I don't know. Love the story. I kind of like the surroundings. It's doing what I would like to see be done, but I do have this this struggle going on. So I'm going to give this an 8. Getting back up here. I know I don't have the whole image. Somehow this got cropped. So cropped, yeah. You know, this image first came up. S curves are so powerful that I looked at this image and I went, and I raced through this image right up to here. And I thought, God, it's a shame that there's not a red Ferrari coming around that corner, or a girl in a red bikini standing there, or something for a landing spot that this really great leading line is taking me to. Then I paused for a second and I suddenly saw the sign down here. I mean, this is so strong that I really literally missed this at first. So I'm thinking you guys can pretty much do whatever kind of editing you want. I think I would have, in Photoshop, I would have grabbed this sign in post and I would have moved it right there. And or right there, so that my leading line takes me to this really powerful payoff up there. And I probably would have just cloned or clone stamped out these two right here that are just not contributing to it. So it's, you know, it's really a fun image, and the sign certainly meets the requirement, but gosh, how much stronger it would have been, again, with that payoff from this beautiful, beautiful line here. I mean, it's just incredible, those curves, those S curves. So I really enjoyed the image. I think it's strong. I wish the sign was there. And if it was up here, it would have probably been a 10, but I'm going to give it a 9 because of that. And how, talk about impact. I mean, this just nailed it for me. So strong. You got, I mean, this is just a really powerful graphic. You know, this diagonal here, the diagonal here, you got this shape, beautiful shape of the sign itself. The tonality is really nice. You know, you're a little blocked in the shadows on the outside, but that's okay because it really brings you in and focuses on the sign. I love the textures that you've got with all the little cracks here. I fight a little bit with the white border. It is, and in most cases, I would just say, man, that border has really taken me out of this image. In this case, I think it kind of works. I did, just for my own sake, and I don't do many white borders just for that reason, that it tends to take the eye out of the image. I kind of pulled it in just to see. I think it still serves the same purpose, but I think it's arguable either way. So if the maker wants to have a debate with me, thinner or thicker, we probably can have fun with that, because I'm not going to disagree either way. I think it's just a cool image, and I believe it's a 10 because there's just absolutely nothing other than debate the white border that I would have done to change it. So congratulations to whoever did this image. And I kind of think, oh no, there is another one. I think this is really, really well done. You know, the assignment, this is definitely strong in terms of the sign. And then you got all the other signs kind of diagonally leading you down. into this kind of meaty, nice area here with all the, I don't know, they're teenagers or young people or anybody's a young person, I think, compared to myself and some others in the audience here. Just really a pleasant, nicely composed image. Color tones are nice. The sky's a little bit blown right there, which is a pretty strong pull, again, of the eye away from what's in here. I think I would have tried to have toned this down someplace, even if I just had to replace it with some other parts of the sky up here. This is maybe pushed the blues here, or maybe pushed a little bit. I don't know if that's sky or cloud. It may be sky, but yeah, the colors have been a little bit pushed on it. But overall, I think it's a cool image. Nice diagonal here with this fence taking you traveling right there. Good balance. Nice image. I'm going to give it a 9. I just got such a kick out of this church quiet zone. Here again is the sign relating, the people relating to the sign and the story. And that so much about what this assignment is about. And you cannot help but kind of, you go up here, you see the sign right away, I did at least. And then I come down and I start looking around at the expressions. This guy laughing, this guy looking down, this guy looking over, all these eye lines. You got these two guys, this guy looking up at this guy looking here. That little section right there is compositionally pulling you in. That guy's taking you over to look at that. So there's all this interplay going on with all these actors, so that your eye is being led around from one guy to the next guy, to the next guy, to the next guy. And each one of these guys is almost a little story unto itself, all wrapped up into a nice story with the sign up here. Cropping is nice. I really like kind of the placement in the lower half of the image here. Bicycle's kind of cool over there. Just a lot of stuff to look at this that's really nice. Beautiful sky in the background, nice trees. What's not good about it, other than maybe it's breaking down a little bit. And for that reason only, I'm going to give it a 9. And yeah, let's see where we're at. And we're back to the beginning. So with that, and ready for, anybody got a question on one of the images that we want to talk about, or?
Just one question right off the bat is this: the score that you gave this image was an 8, I think.
I believe so.
Okay, that's the only one. I forgot my role, or part of my role was to make note of the scores, but I quickly recovered from that.
Okay.
And you can unmute yourselves now and have it Hutch, or or not. Thank you very much. A lot of good insight to the images that we presented, and lots of really fun images tonight.
Lots of fun images. This was really a pleasure. One of the things I struggle with a little bit is I always try to think, and I felt tonight, normally I try to use an absolute full range of scores. Normally I try to give everything from a 5 to a 10. Because I believe all judges should do that. And I don't think people would feel so bad about 5s and 6s and what have you if every judge gave them occasionally. Too often we see judges weight everything to one side or to the other side instead of giving it the full range. Tonight, I think I didn't quite give it the full range. In fact, I think I leaned a little bit to the right, which kind of, to the 10s or to the 10 end, which kind of tells you how much I enjoyed all the images. But part of that commentary also is to not feel so bad if you got a 7 or 6 or what have you, because again, I really feel like I need to give as much of a range of scores as I can. And some of them I could have very easily moved 1 point up or down without any trouble. So anybody have a question on a specific image or?
Actually, the one that you said we could talk about having the big white border versus
Oh.
the small white border on the hamburger sign.
Yeah.
You know, when you brought it in like you did, it looked really, really good. Because I thought, oh my God, it looks really great having so much white.
Yep.
And then when I saw what you did, it still has an impact about it. And so it was a nice, you said it could go either way. And, you know, because we're not really, what do I want to say? When I see like images, let's say in a show, and they've given like a really white, big white mat around it.
Right.
It's like, it's so dynamic. So I said,
Yes.
well, God, that's great. I'm going to do that.
No, that's
And
right.
then what I saw here also looks just as strong as what I did. So anyhow, it was a nice way of looking at it to make it a smaller one.
You know, 25 years ago, when I first started really competing in camera clubs, you just literally got murdered if you used anything other than a white border. In fact, one of the judges, and I think probably has judged for fStop occasionally, I used a black border, and he said I was cheating. I said, what do you mean I was cheating? He said, because a black border will increase the perception of contrast. And as you start studying color, Jerry, I know Jerry's a trained graphic artist. So I know he knows color theory and what have you. I've got some really interesting illustrations of what color does and what black does to white and what have you. And everybody used white borders mainly because a white border was almost required for exhibitions because it neutralizes an image. It doesn't increase contrast. It was considered the most neutral way to do it. And you didn't use colored borders. And you know, colored borders today, you got to be careful with. At the Professional Photographers of America and Professional Photographers of California, you can see a lot of colored borders now. I mean, tons of them. But I got to tell you, probably 25% of our scores at PPC are based on presentation. And so borders become really critical in the professional competitive world. But we didn't for many, many years, we didn't see anything but white borders, again, because the judges thought, you know, that's the way exhibition prints are exhibited. It levels the playing field between all of the prints. And then all of a sudden, I don't know, maybe 8 or 10 years ago, suddenly we see more black borders or other than pure white. And now you're going to hear a lot of judges exactly reverse the whole thing. I do it myself where I say, you know, that white border is pulling my eye out of the image because it's the brightest part of the image. And it does.
You know, Hutch, if you get rid of the white border, and it really, it needs, for me, it really needs to have that white is just as important as the image itself. Because as soon as you take that away, that white play off of the black, in my opinion, just makes that sucker pop.
Yeah.
You know, it's not going to be everybody's cup of tea, but I like the white better than I just like that on its own. But maybe that's just a personal thing.
Couldn't agree with you more. And you know, obviously a black border would not work on this.
Right.
Although it would be interesting. I'm not sure we have the time for me to be pulling up and playing with borders, but you know, again, at PPC, we use a lot of double borders. So we have a interior border and then a stroke around that, and then a outer border, and oftentimes doing different stuff with each one of those layers. And that might work in a case like this where you'd have maybe a really thin white stroke around the image itself, and then a thin black border around that, and then another stroke around that, and then another black border over that. I don't know, that might work, but I agree with you as it is right now. The white border really works with the image. I mean,
Yeah.
it's all the difference in the world.
Well, one I just wanted to say, I haven't got a 10 in, I mean, probably a year. So to
Yeah.
get a 10 on this, it's like, holy shit, this is great. Yeah, because I don't get 10s.
You
So,
can pay me later. You can pay me later, Jerry.
yeah. And then on the opposite one, you gave me a 6. And I don't usually get a whole lot of those. But I do get 7s, you know, so I got both. I'm up and down. Thanks.
You averaged out your usual scores, huh?
Anyhow, thank you. I really appreciate it.
No, it's I love that image. I think I think it epitomizes the topic. I think it really well done.
Thank you.
There were so many good ones tonight. Really, seriously, it just.
Hey, Hutch,
Yeah.
this is Terry,
Yeah, hi Terry.
and I just wanted to thank you, and I think all of us should, for the great amount of thoughtfulness that you put into critiquing these images.
Ditto.
I think it was really excellent that you showed in real time how to make crops, which really dramatically changed some of these pictures
Oh, yeah.
by making the crops. And what was interesting to me is most of the things that you did were actually removing something
Yeah.
from the image. I don't recall that you added, that you needed to add much on for any other images. So the idea that less is more was really something. And the image that appealed to me with that was the one with the side of the building with the word ground on it.
Mhm.
They made
Yeah.
a tremendous thing,
Yeah.
a tremendous difference with that cropping. And additionally, the one where it was going up the stairs, where it pointed to the upstairs, what a tremendous difference the cropping made. So it was really a great lesson for me, I think all of us, on composition tonight. So we thank you for that.
Yeah, I think, Terry, thank you so much. And without patting myself in the back, I hear this quite often, and I know personally most of the judges that judge for you. I mean, we're almost like a circuit, a lot of us. I know most of the judges up in Ventura County and the Valley area and what have you. And I, with all due respect to some of them, I know get presented with the preview and spend about 2 seconds going through it. And I really enjoy looking at images. It's not so much that I'm doing it for the judging sake, but I just really enjoy looking at the images. And I think that they deserve, if you're gonna give me the respect to come and judge you, then I've got to give you the respect of spending in time enjoying what you're doing. In terms of the cropping, you're really right. In fact, one of the things in open competitions that I often find, I talk a lot about, I didn't see it happen much tonight, is that so often I'll see images where there's 2 or 3 or 4 images within the image. And people tend to want to put everything in. And so you start looking at them and you think, gosh, there's, if they just had this little section, that would be a great image, or that little section, it would be a great image. There's just this tendency to want to include everything, and less is better in most cases, because
Right.
it focuses you down on the point of interest, which is really the point of impact.
I wanted to comment, Hutch, exactly on that too. The staircase, like Terry said, when you cropped in and got closer, it changed it. It became like absolutely beautiful.
Yeah.
Right.
Just simplifying what we were seeing there.
I love that image. I mean, I really, really, in fact, I didn't see the perspective change at first. I just cropped it. And then when I changed the keystoning on it slightly and cropped it, I just went, wow. So great, thank you.
Couple other things. Just I did the Route 66 sign and also the Santa Monica sign in the water.
Oh,
And everything you said, you completely understood what I was going for in every way. So I just thank you for that. That was awesome feedback.
those are two wonderful, wonderful images. They really,
Right.
really
Yeah, they
were.
were.
Yes.
Yeah, and you know, when you say you put a lot of thought in it, it shows. I mean, those are thoughtful, pre-planned images. I guarantee the rest of us here tonight that Mike didn't just go out and simply take that shot. I am sure that you probably moved side to side, backwards, forwards, quite a number of times until you saw exactly what you wanted to see and everything framed where it should be. I got a feeling you also were pretty careful about the focal length of the lens you were using.
On the composite one, I definitely matched with the different shots so that they would blend together correctly.
Yeah.
If anybody cares, I have the originals queued up and I can show you in 2 seconds how I made that, because you'd be pretty blown away, I think, if you saw how bad the original shots were.
No.
I want to know why there's nobody there. Did you come up to the pier and say, hey, everybody, I have COVID?
I'll show you. Lloyd, if you want to give me control for 2 seconds, I can show you.
You got it.
Yeah, go ahead.
All right, I'll go fast.
Oh, I made a mistake here though. Okay, so
Can you see?
yeah, you should be able to share the screen.
I think Hutch has to unshare.
Okay.
So you can see the Santa Monica sign, right?
No, we can't.
No.
Hutch,
Oh,
you
we're-
need to,
Hutch
Hutch needs to unshare.
unshare.
Oh, yeah, excuse me. I'm seeing
Here.
it. I'm seeing it, but the rest of them aren't.
There you go.
Okay, there we go.
There it
Yeah.
is.
So this was the original of the sign. And what was crazy about this, I went there like before sunrise because I wanted to get the great light. And of course, it was totally overcast day. It was not a great day. And you'll notice that this
Yeah.
arm that's blocking the B.
Wow.
And then this other side over here on the left, the blue pole, it doesn't go deep enough. So you'll see. And then I did take a bunch of shots here. I was pretty focused on which focal length I was using. And then I went to the water about a mile away from this and started taking ocean pictures. And again, the light got worse, unfortunately. Let's see if I can get there.
Well, you know,
And so
Come
this
back in
is-
5 years, you won't have to Photoshop it.
That's right.
Exactly. This is the shot of the water. So it's just flat and ugly. And I noticed that I had a lot of dust on my sensor at this point. And I had a ton of different shots to go with, but when I put them together, I changed the color. And like you said, I worked really hard first off, I had to take neon from the other letters to replace the B where that pole was, right? I had to
Wow.
rebuild the sign.
Right.
Oh my God, it's great.
And
It's
then
so
I took
great.
the right side support and moved it to the left side and flipped it and changed it a little
Yeah.
bit so it didn't look exactly the same. And then the funnest part was trying to make it look like there was water going around the
Oh,
bottom
yeah.
down here.
That was the most fascinating part of the whole.
Right.
initiative.
It was a lot of fun. It was a lot of hard work to do that because I'm pretty good in Photoshop, but everything takes a lot of time.
Yeah, that's really a terrific job. It's fabulous.
Very
It
nice.
did- Just the concept to want to put those two together, going two different places. I mean, you had something in mind and you made it work. I think it's great.
Thank you very much.
Wow.
This was the original of that the other one. And like you said, well, first off, I went through and I removed all of the secondary lights on all these poles. And I cleaned up tons of just little dirt and white spots on the ground. And this pier thing, I took out this light here, I made disappear, and then I had to rebuild the P and the I
Oh,
and the
jeez.
E. And
Wow.
but I mean, for me, like that's fun because it teaches me how to use Photoshop better, right? You got to
Wow.
Yeah, right.
And then like you said, the color, this was the focal point, and I wanted to make the sign the focal point. So that's why I started toning down the colors, and it was a ton of work, but it was just so much fun to have something that ended up being so different.
Yeah, right.
Look at that.
You
Yeah.
also fixed the perspective too, with
Yep.
the building, straightened them out.
And
Exactly.
the birds in the background, that flock, holy cow, what a great catch to be able to get that. My
Yeah,
goodness.
that's just luck right there.
Well, it's great luck.
And Hutch, if you want to use this in your presentation, you're more than welcome. That would be
It's
incredible.
really, I mean, it's just got so many good things going about it that
Yeah.
I may call on you for that.
Anytime.
You know,
So anyway.
you mentioned, you know, doing new things with Photoshop and learning. It's just, to me, I just shot the Long Beach Grand Prix. First time ever, I'm an air show guy. I love shooting air shows and I'm pretty damn good at it, but I never shot an automobile race in my life. So I go down to the Long Beach Grand Prix and they've done everything they can to make it difficult for photographers. I gotta tell you. And so I've been learning how to put motion blur into race cars coming around a corner or what have you, and taking double fences out. And it's something I've never done before. And but I've learned something totally new that I'm thinking, oh my God, I can apply that to all my other photography. It's that's how you learn.
Yeah, exactly.
Just taking on a new challenge. I don't know if I can. I may be able to show you one of my Photoshop. Let me see.
Real quick, Hutch, which program are you using? You were displaying on?
That's basic Camera Raw. I don't use Lightroom at all. I use Camera Raw and Bridge Camera, and I get huge debates over that, but I use Smart Objects an awful lot, and I'll go back. It used to be I did probably 90% of my post-processing in Photoshop and about 10% in Camera Raw, or what is the develop module in Lightroom. They're virtually 99.9% the same. They're just a different interface. But with Camera Raw, it's much easier to go as a smart up and go back and forth. I do probably 90% of my processing now in Camera Raw, or what would be the develop module of Lightroom, because I can do so many things so much quicker and easier in Camera Raw than I used to be able to have to do tediously in Photoshop, especially if you have not learned how to use the radial and you saw me use the gradient on that.
Oh yeah.
It's stuff like that I just use a ton, that in Photoshop would have taken a hell of a lot of work to accomplish the same thing. So now I'll go and do a lot of my editing in Camera Raw. I'll go into Photoshop, but because it's a smart object, if I do the work I'm doing in Photoshop, I want to go back to Camera Raw, I can go right back, boom, as a raw image and continue to edit my edits in Camera Raw and then back to Photoshop again. I can't do that in Lightroom. Once I leave Lightroom, I'm taking it out as a PSD or a TIFF, and I cannot bring it back in and continue where I left off. That's not quite true, because I can go out of Lightroom into Photoshop as a smart object, but then it takes me, if I click on the little smart object button, it takes me into Camera Raw, believe it or not. And none of the edits that I did in Lightroom are still there. So it's kind of complicated, and I don't know, unless you're kind of into it. Lightroom still, I don't argue Lightroom because 99% of the world uses it. And
George, for what it's worth, you can be editing in Lightroom and then move to make an edit, say like to clone something into
Right.
Photoshop. And when you open Photoshop, it will ask if you want to work on the edits already made in Lightroom, and you can click that as yes. And then when you do the Photoshop changes, when you click save, it reverts back to Lightroom with the changes that you just made in Photoshop.
as a PSD or a TIFF.
No, it'll come as a TIFF. It usually comes as an edit.tiff.
As a TIFF, yeah.
Yeah.
But I can't go back again once more back to Photoshop and continue. But we're getting
Or whatever, yeah.
yeah, we're getting complicated here.
Yeah.
But hang on one second, and I'll show you something that if I can get. Let's see. I'm getting system resources are getting low here, but yeah, where is it?
You know how you feel.
Well, know that you're working in camera raw. I mean, that's really great. I'm going to go back and really explore that a lot more than if that's what you were using tonight to,
Yeah.
move things around and, the plane itself going back and forth. That all was in camera raw?
Yeah. Everything tonight was in camera raw.
Wow. I gotta go back and look at it some more. That's great.
They really added a lot of stuff recently, and I haven't explored most of it, but that radial filter is really nice. They added that. They just added half the stuff that they have in Lightroom.
Radial filter has been around for a couple of years. It
Okay.
came into camera raw originally first.
Oh, did it? Okay, I hadn't seen it before in the.
But now when you get an update in camera raw, you get the same updates in Lightroom 99.9% of the time.
Right.
There are certain things you'll get in camera raw that occasionally be ahead of Lightroom, but it's pretty rare. It used to be that they would make all these changes, and this was before the subscription. It's one of the big advantages of the subscription is they would make changes in Lightroom, and those would not appear in camera raw until 6 months later when you bought the new version or you bought the upgrade version of Photoshop. And likewise, then they would make upgrades to camera raw and you wouldn't get them in Lightroom for 6 months or a year or whatever until you upgraded. Now, if you're on the subscription, for the most part, all of the improvements happen simultaneously between both, with a few minor exceptions. The radial and the grad and the brush are the three what we call local adjustments. That's what's made the huge difference in my editing in Lightroom or in Camera Raw versus Photoshop, because those local adjustments, brush, radial, and grad, are just so much easier to use, so much quicker to use than doing the same thing I used to do in Photoshop.
Right.
And again, that ability to go back and forth. But most people have not learned how to use them. See, you use the brush or the radial, what have you, you can actually have it, you can brush it in and out. And coming up this winter, if you haven't heard about it, just, I don't know, I get updates on what's coming in Photoshop and from Adobe, and occasionally I've worked with them on a couple things, but coming up this winter, you're going to have layers coming in local adjustments in Lightroom and Camera Raw. And that's going to really change the turn upside down a lot of what people are doing in Lightroom right now. I'll show you how I'm kind of getting away from, yeah, there we go. This is one of my images. I had fences and I had poles and I had a ton of things in the way. So sometimes you just got to get artistic. You see?
Oh, wow. Oh my gosh.
I mean, there were crisscross fences going all across that.
Oh, yeah.
And so it's, I played a lot with that to do maybe more treatments than, where am I at now? I'm trying to figure out where my shares, you can see the blue car, right?
Right.
Right.
Oh, there we go. Yeah.
Was
So
the motion blur or that motion, was that all added, Hutch?
the motion blur, let me bring it back up for you. Share, come on. The motion blur from here down was done in Photoshop.
Ah,
The
okay.
motion blur from here up, that background, what you see on those white stripes there is
Yeah.
actually posts, they're poles. But I was panning so fast. I mean, I thought panning at an air show was something. Those cars going 165 miles an hour down the straightaway, it's like a head snap. You're just going bam. And that literally, those are posts, vertical posts that with stripes on them that are blurred out there. So the top is in camera, all in camera.
Wow.
The bottom is in Photoshop. And
It's kind of weird, to me, the bottom part of the car being blurred with the top part of the car not being blurred.
it is intended. I mean, it's just an artistic, it's not a reality, it's not intended as a reality image. The thing that really is hard to grasp is this was shot through 2 layers of chain link fences.
Wow.
All
It
this
must have been fun taking those out.
This was crosshatch of chain link, blurred chain link fence.
Wow.
And yeah, it was a
Oh, man.
battle. I got see if I can, there's another one here if I can. Gotta get this, yeah.
It's fun to see the magic you bring to this. Wow.
Let's see. Oh, that one I may only, I have a hard time doing. These are, yeah, I have to open the, well, I'll go ahead and try it. I've got to open this with Photoshop, and then I work with 2 monitors, and it really gets confusing sharing Photoshop because all you guys that I'm looking at get covered up by all my tools and everything. But this is one that where the fences were really bad. That's all in camera blur.
Wow.
Is in camera. The only thing that's not in camera is that the chain link fence was so severe. You can still see little bits of horizontals of it there and a little bit blurred. In the wheels here, in the center of the wheels, were all these lines from the chain link fence. And there was no way of fixing them. You can still kind of see a little bit of
Wow.
artifacting. So the spin on the wheels were already spinning. But then I used a spin blur tool in Photoshop to actually change the angle of the spin, not so much increase the amount of spin, but change the angle of the spin so that it blurred out those lines. But other than that, I mean, the motion blur in it is all in camera.
Wow.
Nice job.
Oh, it's beautiful.
And just
I have a
really
question about what you chose now for your border. You could submit this to some of the PSA and all that, and those borders are all accepted.
well, in PSA, they don't particularly like fancy borders,
They
although
don't know.
they're starting to sneak in a little bit.
Ah.
Where borders like this are almost mandatory is
Oh, wow.
PPA, Professional
Oh, okay.
Photographers, California. And you know, I'm more active now in the Channel Islands Professionals actually than I am in Thousand. I'm still active in the Thousand Oaks Photo Group, but I'm more active in PSA international competition. S4C, I'm on the board of directors, and actually I'll be judging a Saudi Arabian international exhibit
Whoa.
this month.
Oh,
So I'm judging exhibits around the world. It's really fun because
wow.
I judge with a gal. Her name is Barbara Schmidt from Germany. Look her up on Google. She is probably the most talented photographer I've ever met in my life. Judging with her was incredible. And my other judge was a guy from Brazil, who's also probably one of the best photographers in the world. So I get to meet these just amazing people, amazing judges from around the world. It's really a lot of fun. But then I'm wearing two hats now. I'm going from the PPA, Professional Photographers of America world, where presentation borders like this are 20% of their scoring.
Oh,
And in PSA international exhibits, it's almost no part of their scoring. This is the kind of double-edged border I was talking about. See, I've got a little bit of a white key line around the image itself, and then the key line here. So it's a double border, and you get pretty fancy with the borders. I don't know if I can.
I love that feel about it. It's like, oh, wow.
Yeah, you just almost have to do it. Let me
Oh,
see if
my.
I can find. I think I can find maybe one of the ones I've. And I took in the world of the Professional Photographers of America. I entered for the first time the state competition this last year, and you're allowed to enter 8 images. And if you get 2 or 3 acceptances, it's really a big deal. I got 6.
Whoa.
So I was
Congratulations. Wow.
I was pretty happy with that. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Let me see if I can show you one here that actually was one of the ones that
I like the pelican, the way that you have it outside the border.
Yeah. On that Pelican one, that's acceptable in judging in some of the places that you're entering things.
in Professional Photographers of America, California, or like Channel Islands professionals. Unfortunately, the Professional Photographers of California chapter that was in the Valley closed down this last year. And we are the beneficiaries of about half their members at Channel Islands. The other half went over to the LA Professional Photographers of California.
Wow.
Over on the west side, which is a bitch for most of the people of Valley to drive over to. But here would be here's a border that I probably, well, I might do this at PSA, but in PPC, this is the kind of stuff you can see. I presume you can see this, the pelicans flying.
Yeah,
Yeah.
gorgeous.
Yeah, that's done pretty well recently. In fact, one of the state judges that saw it says, "Oh, you got to put that in the national." I haven't gotten daring enough to enter the national yet. It's the problem with PPA is that the problem I've been having, so to speak, and some of us that belong to both organizations, is that the professional photographers, so many of them are wedding and portrait photographers, and that's the only genre they've ever lived in. And they're not, in my opinion, not really very good judges for a group like fStop or what have you, because they're so genre specific. You know, I'll enter a great picture of a surfer doing a backside cutback, and the judge will say, "Oh, that's terrible. That person's falling down." Or I entered a picture of a warbird with the propellers spinning, blurred, and the body of the plane sharp. And one of the judges, she says, "Oh, that's an awful image." She said, "The propellers are all blurry out and the plane is sharp." And so she scored it way down. Had to be the most perfect warbird picture you ever see in your life. So you kind of run into that genre problem where they don't have, they're very, very good photographers, but they're very narrow in their genre. I've gotten to go probably the best architectural photographer in Orange County. I've gotten to know pretty well recently. Really nice guy, but you know, outside his genre, things get a little bit, little challenging, shall I say.
Mhm.
So I kind of go back and forth between the two worlds. Frankly, PSA S4C competition is, I think, on a broad sense, I think is better than the professional photographers are. And it's broad all the way from beginners up to pro shooters. So you get this huge range of people competing. And there's a lot of learning just from that standpoint. But I'm a little prejudiced being a director of that organization. We've got some big challenges coming up in the next year in terms of camera clubs. You know, we got more and more that are starting to shut down and having struggled with places to meet, and
Oh,
it's there's just a lot of challenges. But
that's a shame.
You're
Yeah.
telling us,
yeah, it's
but we seem to be doing, staying pretty consistent with our membership, which is nice, and picking up a few new people here and there.
Right.
Thousand Oaks. We dropped from 300 members to about 60, and now we're back up to about 120 or 130.
Wow.
And I think we've probably got the best quality of membership that I've ever seen with the club. I'm actually a founding member of Thousand Oaks. I've been a member for 20 years now, I think.
Uh-huh.
And we've gone through periods where we, you know, the quality of the membership, I wouldn't say was very good. Now we've got really a lot of what I call good beginners, just doing a good job. And we've got a lot of really experienced people. We got a new member. You guys should, let me pull him up for a second. This guy will blow your socks off. I don't know what he's doing with a camera club, very frankly. He's one of our new members. He's been a member for about a year now. His name is Noel Kasiji. And the work he does is at a level. Let's share his website here. Come on. I'm clicking and nothing's happening. Here we go.
How do you spell his last name? Kasigi.
Casaje.
Thanks.
And his website, for some reason, I mean, for the rest of us competing, our best landscaper at the Professional Photographers of California, he said, except the Channel Islands professionals, he says, if I bring to Noel to one of the meetings that he joins, he's going to quit, my friend. And he says, nobody will ever win again. It just extraordinary.
Wow.
Well, here's just Google imaging, and let me pull up one of his images, because I got to tell you. Let me share this.
I'm going to go ahead and stop recording now.
Okay, yeah, probably should, since this image right here.